In the depths of night, when sleep eludes you and your mind craves the gentle embrace of ancient stories, let me guide you through the mystical realm of Greek mythology, where shadows dance with starlight and forgotten gods whisper secrets across the centuries. Tonight we journey into the extraordinary tale of Hecate, the enigmatic goddess whose influence stretched across the boundaries of earth, sea, and sky, whose power commanded respect from mortals and immortals alike. Close your eyes and let your breathing slow as we venture back to a time when the world was young and magic flowed through every stone, every stream, every whispered prayer. This is not merely a story of divine power, but a tapestry woven from moonbeams and mystery, where crossroads hold ancient secrets and torches illuminate paths between worlds that ordinary eyes cannot perceive. Before we delve into the depths of Hecate's remarkable story, understand that her tale spans millennia of human imagination and reverence. She stands as one of the most complex and fascinating figures in all of Greek mythology, a goddess whose dominion extended far beyond simple categorization, where other deities ruled over single aspects of existence. Hecate commanded multiple realms, wielding authority that made even Zeus himself acknowledge her unique position in the cosmic order. The ancient Greeks recognized her as the goddess of magic and witchcraft, the guardian of crossroads and thresholds, the keeper of keys that unlocked mysteries hidden from mortal understanding. Yet her influence extended into realms of childbirth and nurturing, protection of households, and guidance for those who traveled dangerous paths, both literal and metaphorical. She was simultaneously feared and beloved, approached with caution, yet trusted implicitly by those who understood her nature. Let your mind drift now as we begin at the very beginning, in those primordial times when the cosmos itself was taking shape, and the first generation of gods was establishing the foundations of divine order. Hecate's origins trace back to the ancient Titans, those colossal beings who ruled before the Olympians claimed dominion over heaven and earth. Her lineage speaks to power that predates the familiar pantheon of gods, whose stories have echoed through the ages. According to the most widely accepted genealogical accounts, Hecate was born to the Titan Perseus and the sea nymph Asteria, a union that combined the destructive force of cosmic dissolution with the celestial beauty of starlight Perseus, embodied destruction and chaos, wielding powers that could unmake the very fabric of reality, while Asteria represented the gentle radiance of stars and the mysteries they held in their distant light. From this paradoxical pairing emerged a daughter who would embody both creation and destruction, light and darkness, protection and terror. Her birth was accompanied by portents that foretold her extraordinary destiny. The night sky blazed with unusual constellations, while the earth trembled with anticipation of the divine child who would bridge multiple worlds. Midwives spoke of how shadows danced without source during her birth, and how the boundary between day and night seemed to blur in ways that defied natural law. Even as an infant, Hecate displayed an otherworldly awareness that set her apart from other divine children. The young goddess grew to maturity in an age when the cosmic order was still fluid and malleable. The Titans ruled with absolute authority, yet their reign was destined to face challenges that would reshape the very structure of divine hierarchy. During this tumultuous period, Hecate demonstrated wisdom and political acumen that would serve her well in the conflicts to come. She observed the growing tensions between the older generation of gods and the rising power of Zeus and his siblings. Recognizing that change was inevitable and that survival would require careful navigation of shifting allegiances, when the Great War known as the Titanomachy erupted between the Titans and the Olympians, most divine beings were forced to choose sides in a conflict that would determine the future of cosmic governance. The war raged for 10 years with unprecedented violence, shaking the foundations of earth and heaven as primordial forces clashed in battles that redefined the nature of divine power itself. Mountains were hurled like stones, seas boiled with divine fury, and the very fabric of space and time bent under the pressure of cosmic warfare. In this critical moment, Hecate made a decision that would secure her position for all eternity. Rather than remaining loyal to her Titan heritage or blindly following family obligations, she chose to support Zeus and the Olympians, recognizing their eventual victory through her prophetic abilities and superior strategic insight. This choice required considerable courage, as it meant turning against her own generation and risking the wrath of powerful relatives who viewed her decision as betrayal of the highest order. Her support proved invaluable to the Olympian cause. Hecate's knowledge of ancient magic and her ability to perceive hidden truths provided Zeus with intelligence that proved crucial in several key battles. She could sense the movements of enemy forces across vast distances, predict the outcomes of strategic decisions, and manipulate magical energies in ways that confounded Titan commanders who had grown complacent in their assumed superiority. Her contributions helped tip the balance in favor of the younger gods, ensuring their ultimate triumph. When victory was finally achieved and Zeus emerged as the new king of the gods, he demonstrated unprecedented generosity toward Hecate in recognition of her crucial support. Unlike other Titans who were either imprisoned in Tartarus or stripped of their powers, Hecate was not only allowed to retain her ancient prerogatives, but was actually granted expanded authority that made her unique among all divine beings. Zeus proclaimed that she would maintain her dominion over earth, sea, and sky, making her the only deity besides himself to wield power across all three realms of existence. This extraordinary arrangement reflected both Zeus's gratitude for her support and his recognition of her exceptional abilities. Hecate had proven herself capable of transcending traditional limitations and boundaries, demonstrating wisdom that surpassed her years and power that commanded respect even from the new cosmic order. Her position became unassailable, protected by Zeus's explicit decree and reinforced by her own formidable capabilities. The establishment of her threefold dominion marked the beginning of Hecate's transformation from a relatively minor Titan offspring into one of the most significant figures in the Greek pantheon. Her authority over Earth encompassed not just the physical realm, but also the hidden spaces beneath the surface where precious metals lay buried and where the roots of all growing things drew sustenance from mysterious depths. Her dominion over the sea included power over its currents, its creatures, and the mysterious islands that appeared and disappeared according to divine will. Her influence in the sky extended to the movements of celestial bodies, the formation of weather patterns, and the subtle forces that governed the passage of time itself. With these expanded powers came new responsibilities that would define her character for millennia to come. Hecate became the divine guardian of thresholds and boundaries, watching over the liminal spaces where different realms intersected and where transformative magic was most potent. Crossroads became her sacred spaces, marked by statues and shrines where travelers would leave offerings in hopes of receiving her protection and guidance. These intersections represented more than mere geographical features. They symbolized the moments of choice and change that defined mortal existence. Her role as guardian of crossroads naturally led to her association with magic and witchcraft, arts that required the ability to perceive and manipulate the hidden connections between apparently separate phenomena. Hecate understood that all things were interconnected through invisible threads of causation and influence, and she possessed the knowledge and power necessary to pluck these threads in ways that produce desired effects. This mastery over magical arts made her the natural patron of those who sought to practice such disciplines, from learned scholars studying the mysteries of nature to village-wise women preparing healing potions and protective charms. The goddess's appearance reflected her complex nature and multiple domains of influence. Ancient artists typically depicted her as a mature woman of striking beauty, whose features suggested both wisdom and otherworldly power. Her clothing varied according to her specific function in any given situation, sometimes appearing in flowing robes that seemed to capture and reflect starlight, other times dressed in practical garments suitable for travel along dark roads or through dangerous wilderness areas. She carried torches that burned with supernatural flame, providing illumination that could penetrate any darkness, while also serving as symbols of her role as guide and protector. Perhaps most significantly, Hecate was often portrayed with three faces or three forms, representing her ability to perceive past, present, and future simultaneously. This triple aspect allowed her to understand the full implications of events and decisions in ways that other deities could not match. She could see how past actions had created present circumstances, while also perceiving the various future possibilities that might unfold depending on choices made in the current moment. This temporal omniscience made her an invaluable advisor to both gods and mortals who sought guidance in complex situations. Her sacred animals included dogs, whose loyalty and keen senses made them ideal companions for nighttime journeys and guardians of sacred spaces. Red mulletfish swam in her honor, their ability to change color symbolizing the transformative powers she wielded. Serpents coiled around her altars, representing the wisdom that comes from shedding old forms to embrace new possibilities. These creatures served not merely as symbols, but as active participants in her divine work, carrying messages between realms and serving as her eyes and ears throughout the mortal world. As Hecate's influence spread throughout the ancient world, her worship took on characteristics that reflected local needs and cultural interpretations, while maintaining core elements that remained consistent across different regions and time periods. Her devotees included philosophers seeking hidden knowledge, healers working to combat disease and injury, travelers facing dangerous journeys, and ordinary people who simply wanted protection for their families and communities. Each group found in her something essential that other deities could not provide, whether it was access to secret wisdom, supernatural protection, or guidance through difficult transitions. The rituals associated with her worship often took place at night, when the boundary between the seen and unseen worlds became thinner and her power reached its peak intensity. Offerings were left at crossroads under the light of the moon, consisting of food, wine, and small personal items that held special significance for the worshipper. These deipna, as they were called, were believed to nourish both the goddess herself and the spirits who served her, maintaining the reciprocal relationship between divine and mortal realms that was essential to the proper functioning of the cosmic order. Her festivals were celebrated with particular enthusiasm by women who found in Hecate a divine protector who understood the unique challenges they faced in ancient society. As goddess of childbirth, she watched over expectant mothers during their most vulnerable moments, providing strength and protection during labor, while also safeguarding newborn children from the various supernatural threats that were believed to target the innocent and defenseless. Her role as household guardian extended this protective function into daily life, making her presence felt in the security of homes and the well-being of families. The goddess's relationship with the moon held particular significance, establishing her as one of the most important lunar deities in the Greek pantheon. Her connection to the moon's cycles influenced everything from agricultural practices to the timing of magical rituals, as ancient peoples recognized that her power waxed and waned with the celestial orb that governed the night sky. During the new moon, when darkness reached its greatest intensity, Hecate's influence over hidden mysteries and secret knowledge became most pronounced. Worshippers would gather in secluded groves and sacred caves, seeking visions and revelations that could only be received when the world was shrouded in complete darkness. The full moon brought a different aspect of her power to the forefront, illuminating pathways that remained invisible during other times of the month. Travelers would plan important journeys to coincide with these periods of maximum lunar brightness, knowing that Hecate's torches would burn brightest when her celestial counterpart shone with full radiance overhead. The goddess herself was said to walk the earth more freely during these times, appearing at crossroads to offer guidance to those who possess the courage to seek her counsel directly. Her role as psychopomp, a guide for souls traversing between different states of existence, brought her into close association with death and the afterlife. When mortals breathed their final breath, Hecate would sometimes appear to ease their transition from the world of the living to whatever lay beyond. She possessed the unique ability to move freely between the realm of the living and the shadowy domain of the dead, making her an invaluable intermediary for those who had unfinished business spanning both worlds. This connection to death was not morbid, but rather reflected her understanding that death was simply another threshold to be crossed, another boundary that separated one form of existence from another. Just as she guided travelers through dangerous mountain passes and treacherous forest paths, she could guide souls through the mysterious passages that led from mortal life to whatever awaited beyond. Her presence during these crucial transitions provided comfort and assurance that the journey, however frightening it might seem, was part of a larger cosmic order that ultimately served purposes beyond mortal comprehension. The goddess's knowledge of herbal lore and natural magic made her the patron of healers and herbalists throughout the ancient world. She understood which plants possessed curative properties and which ones carried deadly poisons, knowledge that was essential for those who sought to practice the healing arts or protect themselves from harmful magical influences. Her gardens, said to grow in hidden valleys, accessible only to her most devoted followers, contained specimens of every plant known to possess supernatural properties, from humble herbs that could soothe a child's fever to exotic blossoms that could induce prophetic visions or grant temporary supernatural abilities. Students of her mysteries learned to identify these plants not just by their physical appearance, but by the subtle emanations of magical energy that surrounded them. A properly trained herbalist could sense the presence of a healing plant from considerable distances, guided by intuitive knowledge that came from deep communion with the natural world. This sensitivity to the hidden properties of plants extended to understanding how different specimens could be combined to create potions and preparations of extraordinary potency and precision. Her influence over weather patterns and atmospheric phenomena made her particularly important to seafarers and farmers whose livelihoods depended on favorable conditions. She could summon protective mists to conceal ships from pirates or enemy fleets, stir up storms to destroy vessels carrying evil intent, or calm turbulent waters to ensure safe passage for those who had earned her favor. Coastal communities built shrines in her honor along dangerous shorelines, hoping that her protection would prevent shipwrecks and guide lost sailors safely back to harbor. Agricultural communities sought her blessing for their crops, understanding that her power over the earth's hidden depths could ensure fertile soil and abundant harvests. The mysterious processes by which seeds transformed into flourishing plants fell under her domain, as did the delicate balance of moisture, temperature, and soil composition that determined whether crops would thrive or fail. Farmers would leave offerings in their fields during planting season, asking her to watch over their seeds and protect them from blight, drought, or insect infestations that could destroy months of hard work in a matter of days. The goddess's reputation for protecting women extended beyond childbirth to encompass all aspects of feminine experience in the ancient world. Young girls approaching womanhood would seek her blessing during important rites of passage, hoping to receive wisdom and strength that would serve them throughout their adult lives. Married women looked to her for protection of their households and guidance in managing the complex responsibilities of family life. Widows found comfort in her understanding of loss and transition, drawing strength from her example of how to navigate difficult changes with dignity and purpose. Her association with dogs reflected not only their role as loyal companions and guardians, but also their reputation for supernatural sensitivity. Dogs were believed to be the first creatures to sense the approach of spirits or other supernatural beings, making them ideal sentinels for those who worked with magical forces. Hecate's sacred hounds were said to possess enhanced abilities that allowed them to track supernatural prey across vast distances and to perceive threats that remained invisible to human senses. These divine dogs served as messengers between the goddess and her worshippers, appearing in dreams to deliver important guidance or manifesting physically to lead travelers away from danger. Their howling in the night was often interpreted as a warning of approaching supernatural activity, prompting wise individuals to take appropriate precautions or seek the goddess's protection through prayer and offerings. The bond between Hecate and her canine companions represented the deep connection between divine wisdom and instinctive knowledge that transcended rational understanding. The practice of leaving food offerings at crossroads evolved into elaborate ritual meals shared between the goddess and her devotees. These communal feasts, held under the open sky with only stars and torches for illumination, created opportunities for direct communication between mortal worshippers and divine presence. Participants would share stories of their encounters with the supernatural, seek advice for difficult decisions, and receive instruction in the proper performance of magical rituals. The food prepared for these occasions held special significance, with each dish carefully selected for its symbolic meaning and magical properties. Bread represented the sustaining power of the earth. Wine symbolized the transformative potential hidden within all natural processes, and honey embodied the sweetness that could be found even in the midst of difficult circumstances. Eggs, with their potential for new life, honored her role in childbirth and renewal, while fish acknowledged her dominion over the mysterious depths of the sea. Her temples, when they existed, were typically modest structures that emphasized function over grandeur. Unlike the magnificent marble edifices erected to honor other major deities, Hecate's sacred spaces were designed to facilitate intimate communion between goddess and worshipper rather than to impress visitors with displays of wealth and artistic achievement. The architecture itself reflected her preference for substance over spectacle, with simple but elegant lines that directed attention inward toward contemplation and prayer rather than outward toward worldly concerns. Many of her most important sacred sites were natural locations that required no human modification to serve their purpose. Ancient groves where three paths converged became natural temples where her presence could be felt with particular intensity. Caves that descended into the earth's mysterious depths provided spaces for the most secretive rituals and the reception of the most profound revelations. Springs that bubbled up from unknown underground sources offered opportunities for purification and renewal that connected directly to her power over hidden waters and secret knowledge. The goddess's influence on literature and poetry reflected her role as patron of those who sought to capture and convey truth through artistic expression. Writers who invoked her blessing found their words imbued with power that could move hearts and minds in ways that ordinary speech could never achieve. Poets under her inspiration could perceive connections and meanings that remained hidden from less perceptive observers, weaving together images and ideas that revealed profound truths about the nature of existence and the human condition. Her protection extended to all forms of creative endeavor that sought to bridge the gap between the seen and unseen worlds. Artists working in various media found that sincere devotion to her mysteries enhanced their ability to perceive and express beauty that transcended mere technical skill. Musicians discovered melodies that could induce trance states conducive to prophetic visions or magical workings. Dancers learned movements that could channel divine energy and facilitate communication with supernatural beings. The development of her cult throughout the Mediterranean world demonstrated the universal appeal of her teachings and protection from the mountains of Thrace to the islands of the Aegean Sea, from the forests of Asia Minor to the deserts of North Africa, communities of her followers established networks of mutual support and shared knowledge that transcended political boundaries and cultural differences. These connections facilitated the exchange of magical knowledge, herbal lore, and ritual techniques that enriched the practices of all participants. Her festivals provided opportunities for these far-flung communities to gather and share their discoveries, creating a vibrant tradition of intellectual and spiritual exchange that advanced understanding of her mysteries across generations. Master practitioners would take on apprentices from distant lands, ensuring that important knowledge would not be lost while also allowing for regional variations that kept the tradition alive and responsive to changing circumstances. The goddess's relationship with justice reflected her understanding that true fairness required the ability to perceive all aspects of complex situations, including those that remained hidden from ordinary observation. Her triple vision allowed her to see not only the immediate circumstances surrounding disputes, but also the historical context that had created current problems and the potential consequences of various possible resolutions. This comprehensive perspective made her an invaluable advisor in matters where conventional wisdom proved inadequate. Those who sought her guidance in legal matters understood that her version of justice might differ significantly from human laws and social conventions. She was more concerned with fundamental fairness and cosmic balance than with technical compliance with written codes or popular opinion. Her judgments took into account factors that human courts could not consider, including the intentions behind actions, the broader implications of decisions, and the spiritual development of all parties involved. Her intervention in mortal affairs often came at crucial moments when individuals faced decisions that would determine not only their own fates, but the destinies of those around them. A merchant standing at a crossroads might suddenly feel an inexplicable urge to take the less traveled path, only to discover later that bandits had been waiting along the more obvious route. A young woman uncertain about accepting a marriage proposal might dream of three-faced figures offering cryptic advice that, when properly interpreted, revealed the true character of her suitor. These divine interventions were rarely dramatic or obvious, reflecting Hecate's preference for subtle guidance that allowed mortals to maintain their free will while still receiving the benefit of supernatural wisdom. She understood that lessons learned through personal discovery carried more weight than those imposed through divine command, and her assistance typically took forms that encouraged growth and self-reliance, rather than dependence on divine intervention. The goddess's mastery over illusion and transformation extended far beyond simple shape-shifting or glamour magic. She possessed the ability to alter the fundamental nature of things, changing not just their appearance, but their essential properties and capabilities. Water could become wine, stone could become bread, and ordinary objects could acquire supernatural powers that served specific purposes in her grand designs. These transformations were not mere tricks or displays of power, but represented her deep understanding of the underlying unity that connected all things in the cosmos. Her knowledge of transformation magic made her the natural teacher of those who sought to master similar abilities. Students who approached her mysteries with proper preparation and sincere intent could learn to perceive the malleable nature of reality and to work with the forces that governed change and renewal. The training was demanding and often dangerous, requiring practitioners to confront their deepest fears and most cherished illusions while developing the mental discipline necessary to handle powers that could easily destroy the unwary. The process of initiation into her mysteries involved a series of tests and challenges designed to strip away superficial understanding and reveal the deeper truths that governed magical practice. Candidates might find themselves lost in seemingly endless mazes where every turn led to new revelations about their own nature and limitations. They could be confronted with visions of their worst fears made manifest, forcing them to develop the courage and clarity necessary to function effectively when facing supernatural threats. These trials were not arbitrary ordeals, but carefully designed experiences that provided essential knowledge and abilities while also serving as safeguards against those who might misuse divine power. Only individuals who demonstrated genuine wisdom, compassion, and strength of character could complete the full course of instruction and receive authorization to practice the most advanced forms of her magic. The goddess's connection to the underworld brought her into regular contact with the shades of the deceased and the various supernatural beings that inhabited the realm of the dead. She served as an intermediary between the living and the dead, carrying messages and requests across the boundary that normally separated these two states of existence. Grieving relatives could approach her shrines with offerings and prayers, hoping that she would convey their love and remembrance to departed family members or bring back news of their well-being in the afterlife. Her knowledge of necromancy, the art of communicating with the dead, made her the patron of those who practiced this dangerous but sometimes necessary form of magic. She understood the proper protocols for summoning spirits without causing harm to either the living or the dead, and she could provide protection against malevolent entities that might attempt to impersonate benevolent spirits or exploit the vulnerabilities created by necromantic rituals. The practice of necromancy under her guidance was never undertaken lightly or for trivial purposes. It required extensive preparation, including purification rituals, protective wards, and careful selection of appropriate times and locations. The goddess insisted that all communication with the dead serve legitimate purposes, such as resolving unfinished business, obtaining crucial information that could prevent harm to the living, or helping lost spirits find peace in the afterlife. Her temples often included special chambers designed specifically for necromantic work, with architectural features that facilitated communication between realms while providing protection against supernatural threats. These spaces were typically located underground or in secluded areas where the activities conducted within them would not disturb ordinary worshippers or attract unwanted attention from hostile forces. The goddess's influence over dreams and visions provided another avenue for divine communication that required no special training or dangerous rituals. She could appear to mortals in their sleep, delivering messages or guidance through symbolic imagery that spoke directly to the subconscious mind. These dream communications often proved more effective than direct verbal instruction because they bypassed the rational filters that might reject uncomfortable truths or difficult advice. Her dream appearances took many forms, from the straightforward presentation of her triple-faced image to complex allegorical narratives that required careful interpretation to understand their full meaning. She might appear as a wise old woman offering cryptic advice, a young maiden leading the dreamer through symbolic landscapes, or a maternal figure providing comfort and reassurance during times of crisis. The interpretation of these dreams became a specialized skill practiced by her priestesses and devoted followers who had learned to recognize the symbolic language she employed in her nocturnal communications. They maintained collections of recorded dreams and their verified interpretations, creating a body of knowledge that helped others understand the messages they received. During their own dream encounters with the goddess, her role as protector of cities and nations reflected her understanding that communities, like individuals, faced threats that required supernatural intervention to overcome. She could shield entire populations from plague, famine, or military defeat when their leaders demonstrated proper reverence and their people lived according to principles she endorsed. These large-scale protections required enormous expenditures of divine energy and were granted only when the circumstances truly warranted such intervention. The goddess expected communities under her protection to maintain certain standards of behavior and to honor their obligations to both divine and mortal neighbors. Cities that allowed corruption to flourish or that broke faith with their allies might find her protection withdrawn, leaving them vulnerable to the natural consequences of their actions. This conditional nature of her protection served as a powerful incentive for good governance and ethical behavior among both rulers and citizens. Her festivals in honor of community protection often involved elaborate processions through city streets, with participants carrying torches that symbolized her illuminating presence and her ability to drive away the darkness that threatened civilized life. These celebrations served both religious and practical purposes, reinforcing social bonds while also providing opportunities for community leaders to demonstrate their commitment to the values she represented. The goddess's association with the element of fire extended beyond her symbolic torches to encompass mastery over all forms of combustion and thermal energy. She could kindle flames that would burn without fuel, create fires that gave off light without heat, or produce heat without visible flame for cooking and warmth. This control over fire made her particularly valuable to craftspeople who worked with metals, ceramics, or other materials that required precise temperature control to achieve desired results. Blacksmiths and metalworkers often maintained small shrines to her in their workshops, seeking her blessing for their forges and her guidance in the complex processes of smelting and shaping various alloys. The magical properties attributed to weapons and tools created under her auspices reflected not only superior craftsmanship, but also the infusion of supernatural qualities that enhanced their effectiveness beyond what purely physical techniques could achieve. Her knowledge of metallurgy extended to the creation of alloys and compounds that possessed properties unknown to ordinary science. Metals blessed by her touch might remain sharp indefinitely, resist corrosion under any conditions, or demonstrate unusual flexibility that allowed them to bend without breaking under extreme stress. These supernatural materials were highly prized by heroes and adventurers who faced challenges that would destroy conventional equipment. The goddess's connection to the sea brought her into contact with the mysterious creatures that inhabited the ocean's depths and the hidden islands that appeared only to those who possessed special knowledge or divine favor. She maintained underwater palaces in remote locations where she could conduct experiments and store artifacts too dangerous for terrestrial storage. These submarine sanctuaries were accessible only to her most trusted servants and those mortals who had earned her complete confidence through years of faithful service. Her influence over tides and currents made her an invaluable ally for maritime traders and naval commanders who needed to move ships quickly and safely across vast distances. She could create favorable winds that would speed vessels toward their destinations, while also ensuring that they encountered no dangerous storms or hostile forces along their routes. Her protection was particularly valued by those who carried precious cargoes or traveled through waters known to be haunted by sea monsters or supernatural threats. The goddess's understanding of marine biology included knowledge of creatures that existed nowhere else in the known world, beings that had been shaped by magical forces or divine intervention to serve specific purposes in the cosmic order. Some of these entities served as her messengers, carrying communications across oceanic distances faster than any conventional means of transport. Others functioned as guardians of underwater treasures or keepers of ancient secrets that she had hidden beneath the waves for safekeeping. Her relationship with time itself reflected her unique position as a deity who could perceive past, present, and future as a unified whole rather than as a linear sequence of separate moments. This temporal omniscience allowed her to understand the full implications of events and decisions in ways that other immortals could not match, making her advice invaluable for those facing complex situations with far-reaching consequences. The goddess could occasionally grant limited temporal abilities to her most advanced followers, allowing them to glimpse possible futures or to understand how past events had created current circumstances. These prophetic gifts came with significant responsibilities, as those who possessed foreknowledge bore the burden of using it wisely and for the benefit of others, rather than for personal gain. Her temples often included special chambers designed for oracular consultations, where trained priestesses could enter trance states that allowed them to perceive glimpses of future possibilities. These visions were never absolute predictions, but rather warnings about probable outcomes based on current trends and decisions. The goddess understood that the future remained fluid and changeable, shaped by the choices made by countless individuals whose free will she refused to override. The practice of divination under her guidance required extensive training in the interpretation of symbols, signs, and omens that might otherwise be overlooked or misunderstood. Students learned to read meaning in the flight patterns of birds, the shapes formed by clouds, the behavior of sacred animals, and countless other natural phenomena that served as vehicles for divine communication. Her influence over the boundaries between different states of consciousness made her the patron of those who sought to explore altered states of awareness for spiritual or magical purposes. She could guide practitioners safely through experiences that might otherwise result in madness or spiritual harm, providing protection and wisdom that allowed them to return from their journeys with valuable knowledge intact. The techniques she taught for achieving these altered states varied according to the needs and capabilities of individual students, ranging from simple meditation practices to complex rituals involving music, movement, and carefully prepared substances that could facilitate transcendent experiences. All of these methods required proper preparation and guidance to ensure that practitioners remained connected to ordinary reality while exploring extraordinary realms of consciousness. Her knowledge of the human psyche included understanding of both its strengths and vulnerabilities, making her uniquely qualified to help individuals overcome psychological obstacles that prevented them from achieving their full potential. She could provide healing for traumatic memories, guidance for resolving internal conflicts, and techniques for developing greater self-awareness and emotional balance. The therapeutic methods she employed often involved symbolic journeys through imaginary landscapes that represented different aspects of the individual's inner nature. These guided experiences allowed people to confront their fears and limitations in safe environments where they could develop new coping strategies and more positive self-images without risking actual harm. Actual harm. Her mastery of psychological healing extended to the treatment of what ancient peoples understood as spiritual ailments that manifested through physical symptoms. She recognized that many illnesses originated not from bodily dysfunction, but from disruptions in the subtle energies that connected mind, spirit, and flesh. Her healing methods addressed these root causes rather than merely treating surface manifestations, providing cures that conventional medicine could not achieve. The goddess maintained sacred groves where healing herbs grew with enhanced potency, their therapeutic properties magnified by exposure to her divine presence. These plants possessed abilities far beyond their ordinary counterparts, capable of healing wounds that should have proved fatal or restoring vitality to those who had been weakened by prolonged illness or spiritual attack. The preparation of medicines from these supernatural specimens required specialized knowledge that she shared only with healers who had demonstrated both skill and ethical integrity. Her understanding of the connection between physical health and spiritual well-being led to the development of holistic treatment approaches that addressed multiple aspects of human existence simultaneously. A patient suffering from persistent nightmares might receive not only herbal remedies to promote restful sleep, but also protective amulets, purification rituals, and instruction in meditation techniques that would strengthen their natural defenses against supernatural intrusion. The goddess's reputation as a protector of children stemmed from her recognition that young mortals possessed natural sensitivity to supernatural influences that adults had typically lost through years of rational conditioning. Children could see spirits, perceive magical energies, and communicate with divine beings in ways that seemed impossible to their elders, making them valuable but vulnerable participants in the cosmic order. She helped maintain. Her protection of these gifted children involved teaching them to control and channel their abilities safely, while also shielding them from malevolent entities that might seek to exploit their openness to supernatural contact. She provided guidance for parents who struggled to understand their children's unusual experiences, helping families develop supportive environments where developing psychic abilities could flourish without causing fear or disruption. The training programs she established for young people with supernatural gifts included instruction in basic protective techniques, ethical guidelines for using their abilities, and methods for distinguishing between beneficial and harmful spiritual contacts. These educational efforts ensured that each new generation would include individuals capable of serving as bridges between mortal and divine realms while maintaining the wisdom necessary to avoid the dangers inherent in such work. Her influence over the seasons reflected her understanding that natural cycles provided essential rhythms that governed not only agricultural productivity, but also human psychological and spiritual development. The changing patterns of light and darkness throughout the year created opportunities for different types of magical work and spiritual growth, with each season offering unique possibilities for those who understood how to harmonize their efforts with natural forces. Spring brought renewal and new beginnings, making it the ideal time for healing rituals, protective charms for growing crops, and ceremonies marking important life transitions. The goddess's energy during this season focused on growth and transformation, supporting efforts to overcome obstacles and embrace positive changes that had been planned during the introspective months of winter. Summer's intense solar energy required careful balance with her lunar influences, creating conditions suitable for the most powerful forms of magical work. During this season, her followers could undertake ambitious projects that required sustained effort and maximum supernatural support, whether they involved healing serious illnesses, protecting communities from natural disasters, or facilitating communication with distant divine powers. Autumn marked the time of harvest, not only for agricultural products, but also for the fruits of magical and spiritual labors undertaken throughout the year. The goddess's festivals during this season celebrated both material abundance and spiritual achievement, acknowledging the interconnection between worldly success and divine favor that characterized her approach to cosmic balance. Winter's darkness provided optimal conditions for the most secretive and profound forms of her work, when the veil between worlds grew thinnest and her power reached peak intensity. During the longest nights, her most advanced followers would gather for ceremonies that could reshape reality itself, working with forces so potent that they required the concealment of winter's darkness to prevent interference from hostile supernatural entities. The goddess's knowledge of astronomy and astrology enabled her to predict celestial events that would influence magical workings and divine interventions. She understood that the positions and movements of planets, stars, and other celestial bodies created patterns of energy that could enhance or inhibit various types of supernatural activity, making proper timing essential for achieving desired results. Her followers maintained detailed astronomical records that tracked not only obvious phenomena like eclipses and planetary conjunctions, but also subtle celestial influences that escaped the notice of ordinary observers. These records provided invaluable guidance for planning important rituals, selecting favorable dates for significant undertakings, and avoiding periods when supernatural work might prove dangerous or ineffective. The correlation between celestial events and earthly occurrences formed a complex system of correspondences that required years of study to master fully. Students learned to recognize the signatures of different planetary influences, understand how various stellar configurations affected human behavior and natural processes, and predict when unusual celestial phenomena might create opportunities for extraordinary magical achievements. Her temples often included observatory chambers equipped with instruments for precise celestial observation and calculation. These facilities served both practical and ceremonial functions, providing the astronomical data necessary for ritual timing, while also creating sacred spaces where worshippers could contemplate the vast cosmic forces that shaped their daily lives. The goddess's mastery over languages and communication extended beyond ordinary human speech to encompass the secret tongues spoken by various supernatural beings and the symbolic systems used to encode magical knowledge. She could facilitate understanding between individuals who shared no common language, enabling cooperation and knowledge exchange that would otherwise have been impossible. Her gift of linguistic comprehension proved particularly valuable in diplomatic situations where misunderstanding could lead to conflict or missed opportunities for mutual benefit. Negotiators who sought her blessing before important conferences often found that their words carried unexpected persuasive power, while their ability to grasp subtle implications in their counterparts' statements improved dramatically. The development of written magical texts required her guidance to ensure that dangerous knowledge was encoded in ways that would protect casual readers from accidental harm while still preserving essential information for qualified practitioners. She inspired the creation of symbolic writing systems that could convey multiple layers of meaning simultaneously, allowing authors to embed protective spells within instructional texts and hide advanced techniques within apparently simple descriptions. Her influence over the development of mystery schools and esoteric traditions ensured that important knowledge would be preserved across generations while remaining accessible only to those who possess the wisdom and character necessary to use it responsibly. These educational institutions served as repositories of accumulated learning and training centers where new practitioners could develop their abilities under proper supervision. The curriculum of these schools typically included extensive study of natural philosophy, practical training in various magical techniques, ethical instruction emphasizing service to others, and spiritual development aimed at achieving greater understanding of cosmic principles. Students progress through carefully structured levels of advancement, with each stage requiring demonstration of both knowledge and character before further secrets were revealed. The goddess's role as patron of these institutions involved not only providing inspiration and protection, but also establishing standards that maintained the integrity of the teachings while allowing for adaptation to changing circumstances. She encouraged innovation and creative interpretation while ensuring that fundamental principles remained intact across different cultural contexts and historical periods. Her connection to the art of prophecy encompassed not only direct revelation of future events, but also the interpretation of signs and omens that provided guidance for those who lacked access to formal oracular consultation. She taught her followers to recognize the subtle indicators that preceded important changes, enabling them to prepare for challenges and opportunities that might otherwise catch them unprepared. The prophetic abilities she granted varied in scope and precision according to the needs and capabilities of individual recipients. Some received broad insights into general trends and patterns that would shape future developments, while others gained detailed knowledge of specific events that would directly affect their personal circumstances or communities. The responsibility that accompanied prophetic gifts included the obligation to share important warnings with those who might benefit from advanced knowledge, while also respecting the natural flow of events that should not be artificially altered through premature intervention. This delicate balance required wisdom and restraint that not all recipients of prophetic abilities possessed naturally. Her guidance in the proper use of prophetic knowledge emphasized the importance of understanding that glimpses of possible futures represented warnings and opportunities rather than fixed destinies that could not be changed. The future remained malleable, shaped by countless individual decisions and divine interventions that could alter even the most apparently certain outcomes. The goddess's association with transformation magic included not only physical shape changing, but also the more subtle alterations of character, ability, and destiny that could reshape individuals' entire life trajectories. She understood that true transformation required change at multiple levels simultaneously, affecting not only external circumstances, but also internal patterns of thought and feeling that determined how individuals responded to challenges and opportunities. Her methods for facilitating personal transformation often involved symbolic journeys through imaginary landscapes that represented different aspects of the change process. These guided experiences allowed individuals to explore new possibilities safely while developing the confidence and skills necessary to implement desired changes in their actual lives. The transformation processes she supervised typically unfolded gradually over extended periods, allowing individuals to integrate new capabilities and perspectives without becoming overwhelmed by sudden, radical changes. She recognized that sustainable transformation required time for adjustment and consolidation, with each stage building upon previous achievements to create stable foundations for continued growth. Her knowledge of the principles governing successful transformation enabled her to identify the specific obstacles that prevented individuals from achieving their goals and to design customized approaches that address their particular needs and circumstances. No two transformation processes were identical, as each person brought unique strengths, limitations, and aspirations to the work of personal change. The goddess's understanding of group dynamics and collective consciousness allowed her to facilitate transformations that affected entire communities or social movements. She could help groups overcome internal conflicts that prevented effective cooperation while also providing protection against external forces that sought to disrupt positive social changes. Her influence over collective transformation often manifested through the emergence of inspired leaders who could articulate shared visions and motivate coordinated action toward common goals. These individuals typically displayed unusual charisma and wisdom that enabled them to bridge differences between diverse constituencies while maintaining focus on objectives that served the greater good. The social changes she supported always aimed toward greater justice, wisdom, and spiritual development, rather than mere political advantage or material gain. She understood that lasting transformation required changes in consciousness and values that would naturally produce improved external conditions rather than superficial reforms that left underlying problems unresolved. Her methods for facilitating social transformation emphasized education and moral development rather than coercion or manipulation, recognizing that genuine progress required voluntary cooperation from all participants in the change process. She inspired movements that appealed to people's highest aspirations while providing practical guidance for implementing idealistic visions in the complex realities of social organization. The goddess's mastery over the elemental forces that governed natural phenomena enabled her to provide protection against disasters while also ensuring that necessary natural processes continued to function properly. She could moderate the intensity of storms without eliminating the rainfall needed for agricultural productivity, or reduce the severity of earthquakes while preserving the geological processes that maintained the Earth's structural stability. Her intervention in natural disasters typically focused on minimizing harm to innocent populations while allowing natural forces to fulfill their cosmic functions. She understood that completely preventing all natural upheavals would disrupt essential planetary systems and ultimately cause greater problems than the immediate disasters she might prevent. The protective measures she implemented for communities in disaster-prone areas included both supernatural shields that could deflect or absorb destructive energies and practical guidance that helped populations prepare for unavoidable challenges. Her followers learned to recognize warning signs that preceded various types of natural disasters, enabling them to take appropriate precautions and assist others in preparing for coming difficulties. Her knowledge of geological and meteorological processes allowed her to predict natural events with accuracy that surpassed any purely scientific methods available in the ancient world. This predictive ability made her an invaluable advisor for agricultural planning, construction projects, and travel arrangements that needed to account for seasonal variations and potential natural hazards. The goddess's role as guardian of sacred sites and natural sanctuaries reflected her understanding that certain locations possessed unique concentrations of spiritual energy that required protection from desecration or exploitation. These places served as focal points for divine power that benefited entire regions through their influence on weather patterns, soil fertility, and the spiritual well-being of local populations. Her protection of these sacred locations involved not only supernatural barriers against physical intrusion, but also educational efforts that helped people understand the importance of preserving natural sanctuaries for future generations. She inspired conservation practices that maintained ecological balance while still allowing for reasonable human use of natural resources. The network of sacred sites under her protection created a web of spiritual influence that extended throughout the ancient world, connecting distant communities through shared reverence for natural places that embodied divine presence. Pilgrims traveling between these locations often reported synchronistic encounters and meaningful experiences that confirmed the reality of the spiritual connections linking these special places. Her influence over the designation of new sacred sites ensured that growing populations would continue to have access to places where divine presence could be experienced directly. She guided the selection of locations that possessed the natural characteristics necessary to serve as effective spiritual centers, while also being accessible to the communities that would maintain and protect them. The goddess's knowledge of architectural principles that enhanced spiritual energy led to the development of building techniques that amplified the natural power present in sacred locations. Her temples and shrines were designed not merely to shelter ritual activities, but to focus and concentrate divine energies in ways that made supernatural experiences more accessible to ordinary worshippers. These architectural innovations included the use of specific materials, geometric proportions, and decorative elements that created resonance between human consciousness and cosmic forces. The resulting structures served as instruments for facilitating communication between mortal and divine realms, while also providing practical spaces for community gathering and religious instruction. Her guidance in the construction of sacred buildings emphasized harmony between human creativity and natural beauty, ensuring that architectural achievements enhanced rather than dominated their environmental settings. The most successful examples of her architectural inspiration achieved perfect integration with their surroundings while still providing distinctive focal points for spiritual activity and community identity. The goddess's influence over the boundaries between dream and waking consciousness created opportunities for profound spiritual experiences that transcended ordinary limitations of human perception. She could guide individuals through nocturnal journeys that provided access to knowledge and abilities normally beyond mortal reach, while ensuring that these expanded awareness states remained integrated with daily life rather than becoming sources of confusion or psychological instability. Her dream teachings often took the form of symbolic narratives that encoded practical information within memorable stories, allowing students to retain complex magical techniques through imagery that spoke directly to unconscious understanding. A single dream sequence might contain instruction in herbal preparation, protective ward construction, and divination methods, all woven together through metaphorical representations that made the information accessible to different learning styles and levels of magical development. The goddess understood that dream experiences could provide safe environments for practicing dangerous magical techniques without risking physical harm or supernatural backlash. Students could experiment with advanced procedures in dream states where mistakes would not have lasting consequences, while still gaining genuine experience that would serve them when they attempted similar work in ordinary reality. Her ability to facilitate shared dreams among multiple participants enabled the formation of spiritual communities that transcended geographical boundaries and cultural differences. Practitioners separated by vast distances could gather in communal dream spaces for instruction, collaboration, and mutual support, creating networks of magical cooperation that would have been impossible through purely physical means. The training required to participate effectively in these shared dream experiences involved developing lucid dreaming abilities, while also learning to maintain stable dream environments that could accommodate multiple consciousnesses simultaneously. Master practitioners who achieved proficiency in these techniques could serve as anchors for group dream work, providing the psychic stability necessary to prevent dream dissolution during complex collaborative projects. Her knowledge of the subtle energies that flowed through all living beings enabled her to diagnose and treat ailments that had no visible physical manifestations, but nonetheless caused genuine suffering and limitation. These energetic imbalances often resulted from trauma, prolonged stress, or exposure to negative influences that disrupted the natural harmony between different aspects of human nature. The healing techniques she employed for treating energetic disorders involved realigning the flow of life force through meditation, ritual purification, and the application of specially prepared substances that could restore proper energy circulation. These treatments required careful assessment of each individual's unique energetic signature and the specific nature of their particular imbalances. Her therapeutic approach recognized that energetic healing often precipitated profound psychological and spiritual changes as blocked energies began flowing freely again. Patients undergoing treatment frequently experienced dramatic shifts in their emotional patterns, creative abilities, and spiritual awareness as their natural energetic systems returned to optimal functioning. The goddess maintained training programs for healers who wished to specialize in energetic medicine, providing instruction in energy perception, diagnostic techniques, and treatment methods that could address disorders invisible to conventional medical examination. These programs required extensive practical experience under supervision, as improper manipulation of life force energies could cause serious harm to both patients and practitioners. Her mastery over the creation and activation of magical objects extended from simple protective amulets to complex artifacts that could channel and focus supernatural energies for specific purposes. She understood the principles governing the infusion of consciousness into inanimate materials, enabling the creation of items that possess their own intelligence and could adapt their functions to changing circumstances. The process of creating truly powerful magical objects required not only technical skill, but also spiritual preparation that aligned the creator's consciousness with cosmic forces appropriate to the intended function. Different types of magical items demanded different approaches to their creation, with weapons requiring martial energies, healing tools needing nurturing influences, and divination instruments necessitating connections to prophetic powers. Her workshops, where advanced magical crafting took place, were located in specially prepared environments that concentrated the types of energy necessary for successful object creation. These facilities included forges that burned with supernatural flame, pools of water charged with lunar influences, and chambers where time itself flowed at altered rates to allow for extended work periods without interference from external distractions. The goddess's understanding of the relationship between consciousness and material reality enabled her followers to develop abilities that bordered on what later ages would term psychokinesis, the direct manipulation of physical objects through mental intention alone. These techniques required exceptional mental discipline and years of training to achieve even modest results, but master practitioners could accomplish feats that seemed to violate natural law. The development of psychokinetic abilities began with exercises in energy perception and visualization that gradually built the mental strength necessary for effecting physical changes through consciousness alone. Students learned to sense the subtle energies that connected all things before attempting to manipulate these connections for practical purposes. Advanced practitioners could influence weather patterns, accelerate plant growth, purify contaminated water, and perform other seemingly miraculous feats through their mastery of the principles governing consciousness-matter interaction. These abilities were never used for trivial purposes, but were reserved for situations where conventional methods proved inadequate to address serious problems. Her guidance in the development of psychokinetic skills emphasized the importance of maintaining ethical standards and emotional balance while working with forces that could easily be misused for personal gain or vengeful purposes. Students who demonstrated character flaws or unstable emotional patterns were excluded from advanced training until they had addressed these limitations through appropriate therapeutic work. The goddess's role as protector of travelers extended beyond physical safety to encompass spiritual protection against supernatural threats that might be encountered during journeys to unusual destinations. Her blessing could shield explorers from hostile entities that inhabited remote wilderness areas, while also providing guidance for navigation in regions where conventional landmarks proved unreliable. Her shrines along major travel routes served not only as places of worship, but also as information centers where experienced travelers could share knowledge about conditions ahead, dangerous areas to avoid, and recommended routes for reaching specific destinations safely. These informal networks of mutual assistance reflected her teachings about the importance of cooperation and community support. The protective amulets she blessed for travelers possessed properties that adapted to different types of threats encountered during journeys, providing enhanced effectiveness against whatever dangers were most likely to be encountered in specific regions or circumstances. These adaptive protections required sophisticated enchantment techniques that few magical practitioners could master without her direct instruction. Her influence over the timing of journeys enabled her followers to select departure dates and routes that would minimize risks while maximizing opportunities for successful outcomes. This temporal guidance took into account not only obvious factors like weather patterns and seasonal conditions, but also subtle influences that affected the likelihood of encountering helpful or hostile forces. The goddess's knowledge of languages extended to communication with non-human intelligences, including animals, plants, and elemental beings that possessed consciousness but lacked conventional speech capabilities. She could facilitate understanding between humans and these alternative forms of consciousness, enabling cooperation and knowledge exchange that enriched all participants in such communications. Her ability to communicate with animal consciousness proved particularly valuable for those who worked with familiar spirits or sought guidance from creatures whose natural abilities provided insights unavailable through human perception alone. She taught methods for establishing telepathic connections with animals while respecting their autonomy and natural behavioral patterns. The techniques for plant communication that she developed allowed herbalists and farmers to receive direct information about growing conditions, medicinal properties, and optimal harvesting times from the plants themselves. These communications required patient cultivation of sensitivity to subtle energy patterns and the development of visualization skills that could translate plant consciousness into human comprehensible concepts. Her methods for contacting elemental beings provided access to knowledge about natural processes and environmental conditions that could prove invaluable for various practical applications. Earth elementals could provide information about underground resources and geological stability, while water elementals offered insights into water quality and aquatic ecosystems that benefited both agricultural and maritime activities. The goddess's mastery over the principles of sympathetic magic enabled her followers to create connections between distant objects, people, or events that allowed for influence and information transfer across vast distances. These techniques required profound understanding of the invisible threads that connected all things within the cosmic web of relationships and causation. The practice of sympathetic magic under her guidance involved creating physical representations or symbolic connections that could serve as conduits for transmitting intentions and energies between separated elements. Properly constructed sympathetic links could enable healing work to be performed at a distance, protective influences to be extended across geographical boundaries, and communication to be maintained between individuals who could not meet in person. Her instruction in sympathetic magic emphasized the importance of maintaining ethical boundaries and respecting the free will of others when working with techniques that could potentially influence people without their conscious awareness. Students learned to distinguish between legitimate protective or healing work and manipulative practices that violated cosmic law and personal autonomy. The creation of effective sympathetic connections required materials and procedures that established genuine resonance between the magical link and its intended target. These connections could be strengthened through ritual procedures that enhanced the sympathetic relationship while also providing safeguards against interference from hostile forces that might attempt to exploit established magical links. Her understanding of the mathematical principles underlying magical operations enabled her to teach precise calculation methods for determining optimal timing, proportions, and procedural sequences that would maximize the effectiveness of various supernatural techniques. Those mathematical approaches provided systematic frameworks for magical practice that reduced reliance on intuition alone while still honoring the creative and spontaneous aspects of supernatural work. The numerical correspondences she revealed connected specific numbers with particular types of energy and cosmic influence, enabling practitioners to select appropriate mathematical structures for different categories of magical operation. These numerical relationships provided organizing principles that helped ensure compatibility between different elements of complex magical procedures. Her instruction in magical mathematics included geometric principles that governed the construction of protective circles, ritual spaces, and architectural features designed to concentrate supernatural energies. These geometric relationships reflected deeper cosmic patterns that connected earthly constructions with celestial influences and universal organizing principles. The application of mathematical precision to magical work required extensive study and practice to master fully, as practitioners needed to develop both analytical abilities and intuitive sensitivity to achieve optimal results. The most successful magical mathematicians learned to integrate logical calculation with spiritual inspiration, creating approaches that honored both rational understanding and mystical insight. The goddess's influence over the development of healing arts extended to the training of medical practitioners who combined conventional treatment methods with supernatural diagnostic techniques and therapeutic interventions. These physician priests learned to perceive both physical and spiritual aspects of disease while developing the skills necessary to address health problems from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Her medical teaching emphasized the importance of understanding each patient as a unique individual whose specific constitution, life circumstances, and spiritual development influenced both their susceptibility to illness and their capacity for healing. This individualized approach required practitioners to develop sensitivity to subtle differences that might not be apparent through conventional diagnostic procedures. The treatment protocols she advocated typically involved combinations of herbal medicine, energy work, ritual purification, and spiritual counseling that addressed multiple dimensions of health and well-being concurrently. These comprehensive approaches often achieved results that purely physical treatments could not accomplish, while also promoting personal growth and spiritual development that prevented future health problems. Her training programs for medical practitioners included instruction in the proper preparation and administration of medicines derived from plants that possessed enhanced healing properties through exposure to her divine influence. These supernatural pharmaceuticals required specialized knowledge for safe and effective use, as their potency exceeded that of ordinary herbal preparations. The goddess's mastery over the forces governing fertility and reproduction enabled her to assist couples who struggled with infertility, while also providing protection for expectant mothers and their developing children. Her interventions in reproductive matters required careful consideration of cosmic timing and spiritual factors that influenced the incarnation of souls into physical bodies. Her blessing upon unions between compatible partners could enhance their fertility, while also ensuring that children conceived under her auspices would possess the spiritual qualities and life circumstances necessary for their optimal development. These reproductive blessings were granted only when the prospective parents demonstrated readiness for the responsibilities of raising children who might possess unusual abilities or spiritual sensitivities. The protective rituals she provided for pregnant women included both physical safeguards against complications during pregnancy and birth, and spiritual protections that shielded developing souls from negative influences that might interfere with their healthy incarnation process. These comprehensive protections required ongoing ritual observance throughout the pregnancy period. Her guidance for parents of spiritually gifted children included instruction in recognizing and nurturing unusual abilities, while also providing appropriate boundaries and protection against potential exploitation or harm. She understood that children with supernatural gifts required specialized parenting approaches that honored their unique nature while still providing normal childhood experiences. The goddess's knowledge of the principles governing successful community organization enabled her to inspire the formation of groups dedicated to mutual support, spiritual development, and service to others. These communities typically developed around shared interests in her mysteries, while also addressing practical needs for cooperation and resource sharing among members. Her guidance in community formation emphasized the importance of establishing clear agreements about shared values, decision-making procedures, and individual responsibilities that would prevent conflicts while preserving individual autonomy within cooperative frameworks. Successful communities under her auspices learned to balance collective needs with personal freedom in ways that enhanced both group effectiveness and individual fulfillment. The organizational structures she inspired typically included rotating leadership positions, consensus-based decision-making, and resource-sharing arrangements that prevented the accumulation of excessive power or wealth by individual members. These egalitarian approaches reflected her understanding that sustainable communities required ongoing attention to maintaining equitable relationships among all participants. Her communities often became centers for learning and cultural preservation that served broader populations beyond their immediate membership. They maintained libraries, offered educational programs, and provided various services that strengthened the social fabric of their surrounding regions, while also advancing the spiritual and intellectual development of their members. The goddess's understanding of the relationship between individual spiritual development and collective social progress led her to emphasize the importance of personal transformation as a foundation for creating positive changes in larger social systems. She taught that lasting social reform required changes in consciousness that would naturally produce improved external conditions rather than superficial modifications that left underlying problems unresolved. Her approach to social transformation typically involved inspiring individuals who could serve as catalysts for broader changes, while also providing support networks that sustained reform efforts through inevitable periods of opposition and difficulty. These change agents learned to work with existing social structures while gradually introducing innovations that aligned human institutions more closely with cosmic principles of justice and harmony. The social movements that developed under her influence characteristically emphasized education, moral development, and spiritual growth as primary methods for achieving their goals, rather than relying primarily on political pressure or economic coercion. These approaches required patience and persistence, but produced more stable and comprehensive changes than methods that focused solely on external modifications. Her guidance for social reformers included instruction in maintaining personal balance and spiritual connection while engaged in demanding activist work that could easily lead to burnout, cynicism, or corruption by the very systems they sought to change. She provided techniques for spiritual renewal and perspective maintenance that enabled dedicated reformers to sustain their efforts over extended periods without losing their idealistic vision or ethical standards. The goddess's mastery over the creation of sacred spaces extended to the design of environments that could facilitate specific types of spiritual experience and magical work. Her architectural principles took into account not only physical comfort and aesthetic beauty, but also the subtle energy patterns that influenced consciousness and supernatural phenomena within enclosed spaces. Her temple designs typically incorporated geometric proportions that created resonance between human awareness and cosmic forces, while also providing practical accommodations for ritual activities and community gatherings. These structures served as instruments for focusing divine energy while also creating inspiring environments that elevated the consciousness of all who entered them. The materials selected for sacred construction under her guidance possessed properties that enhanced their ability to conduct and concentrate spiritual energies, while also providing durability that would preserve sacred spaces for future generations. These specially chosen substances often included stones from particular quarries, metals with specific purity levels, and wood from trees that had grown in locations with unusual spiritual significance. Her instruction in sacred architecture emphasized the importance of harmonizing human constructions with natural environmental features in ways that enhanced rather than disrupted the existing energy patterns of chosen locations. The most successful examples of her architectural inspiration achieved perfect integration between artificial structures and natural settings that created unified sacred environments of extraordinary power and beauty. The goddess's influence over the preservation and transmission of sacred knowledge led to the development of sophisticated methods for encoding important information in ways that would survive cultural upheavals and political persecution while remaining accessible to properly trained practitioners. These preservation techniques involved multiple layers of protection that concealed dangerous knowledge from casual observers while providing clear guidance for authorized students. Her libraries and archives were constructed with both physical and supernatural safeguards that protected valuable texts from fire, flood, theft, and deliberate destruction by hostile forces. These repositories often included hidden chambers, accessible only through magical means, ensuring that the most sensitive materials would remain secure even if the public portions of the facilities were compromised by enemies or natural disasters. The encoding systems she inspired for protecting written knowledge utilized symbolic languages that appeared to describe mundane subjects while actually containing detailed instruction in advanced magical techniques. A text that seemed to discuss agricultural practices might actually provide complete procedures for weather manipulation, while an apparent philosophical treatise could contain precise formulas for creating powerful protective talismans. Her training programs for knowledge guardians included instruction in memory enhancement techniques that allowed properly prepared individuals to retain vast amounts of information without relying solely on written records that might be destroyed or confiscated. These human libraries could preserve entire traditions through periods when physical books became unavailable or dangerous to possess. The goddess's understanding of the cyclical nature of historical developments enabled her followers to prepare for periods of persecution and cultural disruption by establishing networks of safe houses, hidden resources, and communication systems that could maintain essential activities during times when open practice became impossible. These preparations reflected her long-term perspective on the preservation of spiritual traditions across generations. Her influence over the development of artistic traditions provided the channels for expressing and transmitting spiritual knowledge through forms that appeared purely aesthetic to uninitiated observers, while conveying precise instructional content to those who possess the keys for proper interpretation. These artistic codes enabled the preservation of dangerous knowledge in plain sight of hostile authorities who remained unaware of the hidden meanings embedded within seemingly innocent decorative works. The musical compositions created under her inspiration often incorporated rhythmic patterns and harmonic structures that could induce specific states of consciousness conducive to magical work or spiritual development. These sacred songs served dual functions as entertainment for general audiences and as practical tools for practitioners who understood their deeper applications. Her guidance in the development of dance traditions resulted in movement sequences that could channel and direct supernatural energies while appearing to observers as purely artistic performances. These choreographed rituals enabled practitioners to conduct magical operations in public settings without attracting unwanted attention from those who might oppose such activities. The textile arts that developed under her influence included weaving patterns that incorporated protective symbols and energy-directing designs into apparently decorative fabrics, clothing, and household items created according to these patterns provided ongoing magical benefits to their users while maintaining the appearance of ordinary domestic goods. Her knowledge of metallurgical techniques extended to the creation of jewelry and decorative objects that served as functional magical instruments while appearing to be simple ornamental items. These disguised tools enabled practitioners to carry their working implements into situations where obvious magical equipment would be prohibited or dangerous to possess. The goddess's mastery over the principles governing group consciousness enabled her to facilitate collective magical workings that combined the energies and intentions of multiple practitioners into unified efforts of extraordinary power. These group operations required careful coordination and spiritual preparation to prevent the chaotic interference that could result from incompatible individual energies attempting to work together. Her instruction in group magical practice emphasized the importance of establishing clear hierarchies and communication protocols that would enable effective coordination while respecting the autonomy and individual contributions of all participants. Successful group workings under her guidance achieved results that far exceeded what any single practitioner could accomplish alone. The rituals she designed for collective magical operations typically included preliminary ceremonies that harmonized the energy patterns of all participants, while also establishing protective barriers that would prevent external interference from disrupting the group's concentrated efforts. These preparatory procedures were essential for maintaining focus and coherence throughout extended magical operations. Her training for group leaders included instruction in energy management techniques that enabled experienced practitioners to guide and stabilize collective workings, while also providing emergency procedures for safely dispersing group energy if unexpected problems arose during ritual activities. These leadership skills required extensive experience and demonstrated wisdom before individuals were authorized to direct major group operations. The goddess's influence over the development of healing communities resulted in the establishment of therapeutic centers that combined medical treatment with spiritual counseling and magical intervention to provide comprehensive care for individuals suffering from complex ailments that required multifaceted approaches to achieve complete healing. These healing centers typically included facilities for both residential treatment and outpatient services, enabling them to address conditions that required extended therapeutic intervention while also providing assistance for minor ailments that could be resolved through brief consultations. The residential programs often resembled spiritual retreats more than conventional medical facilities. Her guidance in the organization of healing communities emphasized the importance of creating environments that supported natural healing processes while also providing access to supernatural interventions when conventional methods proved inadequate. These facilities maintained gardens of medicinal plants, meditation spaces, and ritual chambers alongside more conventional treatment areas. The training programs for therapeutic practitioners in these communities included instruction in multiple healing modalities, ranging from herbal medicine and physical manipulation to energy work and spiritual counseling. This comprehensive approach enabled healers to select appropriate treatment combinations for each individual patient's unique circumstances and needs. Her knowledge of the subtle relationships between physical health and spiritual development led to the creation of treatment protocols that addressed underlying spiritual causes of illness while also providing symptomatic relief through conventional medical interventions. These holistic approaches often achieved permanent cures for conditions that had resisted purely physical treatments. The goddess's understanding of the principles governing successful education enabled her to establish learning institutions that provided comprehensive instruction in both practical skills and spiritual development. These schools typically combined traditional academic subjects with training in supernatural arts, creating well-rounded educational programs that prepared students for effective participation in both mundane and magical aspects of life. Her educational philosophy emphasized the importance of developing critical thinking abilities alongside intuitive sensitivity, enabling students to navigate complex situations that required both rational analysis and spiritual insight. This balanced approach prevented the intellectual rigidity that could result from purely academic training, while also avoiding the impractical idealism that sometimes characterized exclusively spiritual education. The curriculum structures she inspired typically included extensive hands-on experience that enabled students to apply theoretical knowledge in practical situations under careful supervision. These experiential learning opportunities provided valuable training while also serving community needs through student projects that addressed real problems and challenges. Her schools often became centers for research and innovation that advanced understanding of both natural phenomena and supernatural principles through systematic investigation and experimentation. These research programs frequently produced discoveries that benefited broader society while also advancing the theoretical foundations of magical practice. The goddess's mastery over the forces governing artistic inspiration enabled her to guide creative individuals in producing works that transcended mere entertainment or decoration to achieve genuine transformative power. These inspired creations could heal psychological wounds, resolve emotional conflicts, and facilitate spiritual growth in ways that conventional therapeutic approaches could not achieve. Her influence over literary arts resulted in the creation of texts that combined aesthetic beauty with practical wisdom, providing readers with both enjoyable experiences and genuine guidance for addressing life challenges. These works often achieved lasting popularity that enabled them to preserve and transmit important knowledge across generations and cultural boundaries. The dramatic traditions that developed under her inspiration incorporated elements of ritual and ceremony that could produce genuine cathartic experiences for both performers and audiences. These theatrical events served therapeutic functions while also providing entertainment that elevated consciousness and promoted social cohesion within communities. Her guidance in musical composition led to the creation of works that could induce specific emotional and spiritual states while also providing aesthetic satisfaction that made them appealing to general audiences. These compositions often became integral parts of religious ceremonies and magical rituals, while also enriching the cultural life of broader communities. The visual arts that flourished under her influence included painting and sculpture techniques that could capture and convey spiritual energies through material media. These artworks served as focal points for meditation and contemplation, while also providing beautiful decorations that enhanced the environments where they were displayed. Her knowledge of the principles governing successful agriculture extended beyond conventional farming techniques to include methods for enhancing soil fertility and crop productivity through supernatural interventions that worked in harmony with natural processes rather than attempting to override them through artificial means. The agricultural communities that developed under her guidance typically achieved exceptional productivity while also maintaining sustainable practices that preserved soil health and environmental balance for future generations. These farming methods often produced crops with enhanced nutritional value and medicinal properties that benefited both local consumption and trade relationships. Her instruction in agricultural magic included techniques for protecting crops from pest infestations, weather damage, and plant diseases through supernatural means that supplemented rather than replaced conventional farming practices. These protective measures often proved more effective than purely physical interventions, while also avoiding the harmful side effects that could result from excessive reliance on artificial pesticides and fertilizers. The goddess's understanding of plant consciousness enabled her followers to develop cooperative relationships with cultivated crops that enhanced growth rates and yield quality through mutual understanding and respect. These partnerships between human farmers and plant intelligence produced results that exceeded what either party could achieve through independent efforts. Her influence over the timing of agricultural activities ensured that planting, cultivation, and harvesting occurred during periods when natural and supernatural forces provided optimal support for each phase of crop development. This temporal coordination often meant the difference between abundant harvests and disappointing yields, particularly during years when weather conditions proved challenging. The goddess's mastery over the principles governing successful trade and commerce enabled her followers to develop ethical business practices that provided fair compensation for all participants while also creating prosperity that benefited entire communities. These commercial approaches emphasized long-term relationships and mutual benefit rather than short-term profit maximization at the expense of others. Her guidance in commercial matters included instruction in recognizing trustworthy trading partners and avoiding potentially harmful business relationships that might result in financial loss or ethical compromise. This discernment proved invaluable for merchants who needed to evaluate new opportunities quickly while traveling in unfamiliar territories. The trading networks that developed under her influence typically maintained high standards of quality and honesty that earned them excellent reputations throughout the regions where they operated. These positive reputations often provided competitive advantages that more than compensated for any short-term profits that might have been gained through less ethical practices. Her blessing upon commercial enterprises often manifested through synchronistic events that brought together complementary business opportunities or enabled traders to avoid dangerous situations that could have resulted in significant losses. These protective influences helped her followers build successful businesses while also maintaining their integrity and spiritual development. The goddess's knowledge of the subtle factors that influenced economic prosperity enabled her to provide guidance for individuals and communities seeking to improve their material circumstances without compromising their spiritual values or ethical standards. This economic wisdom proved particularly valuable during periods of widespread hardship when conventional approaches to wealth creation proved inadequate. Her understanding of the relationship between individual prosperity and community well-being led to the development of economic systems that encouraged personal success while also ensuring that individual achievements contributed to broader social benefit, rather than creating harmful inequalities or competitive conflicts that damaged community cohesion. The cooperative enterprises that formed under her influence typically achieved remarkable success through their ability to combine individual initiative with collective support in ways that enhanced both personal fulfillment and group effectiveness. These organizations often became models for other communities seeking to develop more equitable and sustainable economic arrangements. Her guidance and resource management emphasized the importance of maintaining balance between current needs and future sustainability, ensuring that present prosperity would not be achieved at the expense of future generations' ability to meet their own requirements for material security and spiritual development. The goddess's influence over the development of legal systems resulted in the creation of judicial procedures that emphasized restorative rather than purely punitive approaches to addressing conflicts and wrongdoing. These legal innovations focused on healing relationships and preventing future problems rather than simply imposing penalties for past offenses. Her understanding of the complex factors that contributed to criminal behavior led to the development of rehabilitation programs that addressed underlying causes of antisocial conduct while also providing opportunities for genuine personal transformation and community reintegration. These therapeutic approaches often achieved better long-term results than conventional punishment systems. The legal codes that developed under her inspiration typically included provisions for addressing spiritual and psychological dimensions of justice that were often overlooked by purely secular legal systems. These comprehensive approaches to jurisprudence recognized that true justice required attention to all aspects of human nature and social relationships. Her influence over legal education emphasized the importance of developing wisdom and compassion alongside technical knowledge of laws and procedures, ensuring that legal practitioners would serve the cause of genuine justice rather than merely advancing their own careers or serving powerful interests that might conflict with broader social welfare. The judicial institutions that formed under her guidance typically maintained high standards of integrity and impartiality that earned them respect from all segments of society, including those who might normally be suspicious of official authority. This widespread trust enabled these courts to address complex social problems that had proven resistant to other forms of intervention. Her methods for training legal practitioners included extensive instruction in psychological understanding and spiritual development that enabled judges and advocates to perceive the deeper motivations and circumstances that influenced human behavior. These enhanced perceptual abilities allowed legal professionals to craft solutions that addressed root causes rather than merely treating surface symptoms of social dysfunction. The goddess's mastery over the principles governing successful diplomacy enabled her to guide negotiations between conflicting parties toward resolutions that served the interests of all involved, while also promoting broader peace and stability. Her diplomatic wisdom proved particularly valuable in situations where conventional approaches had failed to produce acceptable compromises. Her understanding of the psychological dynamics that influenced negotiation processes enabled her followers to recognize and address the emotional factors that often prevented rational resolution of disputes. These insights into human nature proved essential for achieving breakthroughs in seemingly impossible situations where logical arguments alone had proven insufficient. The diplomatic protocols she inspired emphasized the importance of creating safe spaces for honest communication where all parties could express their concerns without fear of ridicule or retaliation. These protected environments often enabled the discovery of common ground that had been obscured by defensive posturing and mutual mistrust. Her influence over international relations typically manifested through the emergence of wise leaders who could perceive the long-term consequences of political decisions while also understanding the immediate pressures that influenced their counterparts in other nations. These enlightened rulers often achieved remarkable diplomatic successes through their ability to balance competing interests creatively. The goddess's knowledge of the forces that governed cultural development enabled her to guide the evolution of artistic traditions, social customs, and intellectual movements in directions that enhanced human dignity and spiritual growth. Her influence over cultural change typically worked through inspiration and education rather than coercion or manipulation. Her understanding of the relationship between individual creativity and collective cultural expression led to the development of artistic movements that honored both personal vision and community values. These balanced approaches to cultural development avoided both the sterile conformity of repressive societies and the chaotic fragmentation that could result from excessive individualism. The cultural institutions that formed under her guidance typically combined preservation of valuable traditions with openness to beneficial innovations, creating dynamic environments where cultural evolution could occur naturally without destroying essential wisdom accumulated over previous generations. These institutions often became centers for creative synthesis that enriched entire civilizations. Her influence over educational systems ensured that cultural transmission occurred through methods that engaged student interest while also conveying deep understanding of underlying principles rather than mere memorization of facts and procedures. These educational approaches produced graduates who could adapt traditional knowledge to changing circumstances while maintaining respect for proven wisdom. The goddess's mastery over the principles governing successful family relationships enabled her to provide guidance for creating households that nurtured individual development while also maintaining strong bonds of mutual support and affection. Her family wisdom proved particularly valuable during periods of rapid social change when traditional structures faced unprecedented challenges. Her understanding of the different developmental needs of family members at various life stages enabled her to suggest arrangements that provided appropriate support and challenge for each individual while also serving collective family interests. These flexible approaches to family organization adapted to changing circumstances while maintaining essential functions. The parenting methods she inspired emphasized the importance of recognizing and nurturing each child's unique gifts and temperament, while also providing consistent guidance that would help them develop strong character and social responsibility. Thus, individualized approaches to child rearing often produced exceptional results in terms of both personal happiness and social contribution. Her guidance for resolving family conflicts focused on understanding the underlying needs and concerns that created tension rather than simply imposing rules or punishments that might suppress symptoms without addressing causes. These therapeutic approaches to family problem solving often strengthened relationships while also providing valuable learning experiences for all involved. The goddess's influence over the development of therapeutic practices extended to the creation of healing methods that address the whole person rather than focusing solely on specific symptoms or problems. These holistic approaches recognize the interconnections between physical health, emotional well-being, and spiritual development. Her understanding of the role that relationship dynamics played in both causing and healing psychological distress led to the development of therapeutic techniques that involved family members and community support systems in healing processes. These collaborative approaches often achieved more complete and lasting results than individual therapy alone. The training programs she established for therapeutic practitioners emphasized the importance of healers maintaining their own psychological and spiritual health while working with others who were struggling with serious problems. These self-care practices prevented the burnout and secondary trauma that could compromise therapeutic effectiveness. Her influence over therapeutic institutions resulted in the creation of healing centers that provided comprehensive support for individuals dealing with complex problems that required extended treatment and ongoing support. These facilities typically combined professional services with peer support networks that sustained healing beyond formal treatment periods. The goddess's knowledge of the principles governing successful community organization enabled her to inspire the formation of neighborhoods and towns that provided optimal environments for human flourishing while also maintaining harmony with natural ecosystems. These planned communities often became models for sustainable development that other regions sought to emulate. Her understanding of the importance of balancing individual privacy with community connection led to architectural and social arrangements that respected personal autonomy while also facilitating the meaningful interactions that created strong social bonds. These balanced approaches to community design enhanced both individual satisfaction and collective effectiveness. The governance systems that developed in her inspired communities typically emphasized participatory decision-making processes that engaged all residents in shaping policies and practices that affected their daily lives. These democratic approaches often produced more creative solutions to common problems while also building stronger commitment to community welfare. Her influence over community economic systems resulted in the development of local exchange networks that kept wealth circulating within communities while also maintaining connections to broader regional and international trade relationships. These economic arrangements often provided greater stability and prosperity than systems that were overly dependent on external markets. The goddess's mastery over the forces governing technological development enabled her to guide innovations that enhanced human capability while avoiding harmful side effects that could damage environmental systems or social relationships. Her influence over technology typically emphasized tools that augmented rather than replaced human abilities. Her understanding of the relationship between technological power and social responsibility led to the development of ethical frameworks that guided the application of new capabilities in ways that served human welfare rather than merely advancing technical possibilities. These wisdom traditions often prevented the misuse of powerful innovations. The research institutions that formed under her guidance typically combined scientific investigation with philosophical reflection and ethical consideration, ensuring that technological advances would be accompanied by the wisdom necessary for their beneficial application. These integrated approaches to knowledge development often produced more sustainable innovations. Her influence over the dissemination of technological knowledge emphasized the importance of ensuring that beneficial innovations would be available to all who could use them responsibly, rather than being monopolized by small groups who might exploit such advantages for narrow purposes. The goddess's knowledge of the principles governing successful artistic collaboration enabled her to facilitate creative partnerships that produced works of extraordinary beauty and power through the synthesis of different talents and perspectives. These collaborative projects often achieved results that exceeded what any individual artist could accomplish alone. Her understanding of the creative process enabled her to provide guidance for artists struggling with blocks or limitations that prevented them from expressing their vision effectively. Her therapeutic approaches to creative difficulties often involved addressing psychological or spiritual obstacles rather than focusing solely on technical skills. The artistic communities that formed under her influence typically created supportive environments where individual creativity could flourish while also providing opportunities for collaboration and mutual learning. These artistic collectives often became centers for innovation that influenced broader cultural development. Her influence over artistic education emphasized the importance of developing both technical proficiency and spiritual sensitivity, ensuring that artists would possess the skills necessary to manifest their vision while also maintaining connection to sources of genuine inspiration. The goddess's mastery over the principles governing successful spiritual development enabled her to provide guidance for individuals seeking to deepen their understanding of cosmic principles and their own divine nature. Her spiritual teaching emphasized direct experience over theoretical knowledge, while also providing frameworks for interpreting mystical insights. Her understanding of the various paths that could lead to spiritual realization enabled her to provide customized guidance that honored individual temperament and circumstances while directing all seekers toward the same ultimate goals of wisdom and compassion. These individualized approaches often proved more effective than standardized spiritual practices. The spiritual communities that formed under her guidance typically combined intensive inner work with practical service to others, ensuring that spiritual development would enhance rather than diminish engagement with worldly responsibilities. These balanced approaches prevented both escapism and spiritual materialism. Her influence over spiritual education emphasized the importance of integrating mystical insights with daily life, rather than treating spiritual experience as separate from ordinary concerns. This integration often produced practitioners who could serve as bridges between spiritual and secular communities. The goddess's knowledge of the forces governing successful healing enabled her to provide guidance for individuals and communities dealing with trauma, loss, and other forms of suffering that required more than conventional therapeutic approaches. Her healing wisdom addressed both immediate symptoms and underlying causes of distress. Her understanding of the relationship between individual healing and collective well-being led to the development of therapeutic approaches that recognized how personal wounds often reflected broader social problems that required community-wide healing efforts. These systemic approaches to healing often produced more comprehensive and lasting results. As the first light of dawn begins to touch the horizon and your breathing has settled into the gentle rhythm of approaching sleep, let the timeless wisdom of Hecate's story carry you into peaceful dreams, through crossroads and moonlit paths, through the mysteries of transformation and the eternal dance between light and shadow. Her ancient presence continues to guide those who seek understanding in the depths of night. May her torches illuminate your own journey through the sacred thresholds of rest, and may you wake renewed by the magic that flows through all things in this wondrous cosmos.